Hello everyone. Naruto Fix here, back with another amazing What If Naruto fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto's kindness turned into feelings he never expected? Part 1. If you enjoy Naruto stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the journey grow. Now let's head right into today's fanfic. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed kindness was simple. You helped because someone needed help. You stayed because someone felt alone. You smiled because the world felt heavy enough already. He never thought kindness could change shape. He never imagined it could turn into something complicated. Peace had settled over Konoha like a cautious breath being held. The village was alive, repaired, hopeful, but quieter than before. Without war, without constant danger, people were finally left alone with themselves. And that was when emotions, long buried beneath survival, began to surface. Naruto walked through the village as he always had, greeting people, listening, laughing when it felt right. He didn't notice the way conversations lingered after he spoke. He didn't notice the way eyes followed him, not with awe, but with something softer. He was just being Naruto. Naruto's kindness had never been selective. He checked on Sakura during long hospital shifts, not because he thought she needed him, but because he remembered how exhaustion felt when you pretended you were fine. He listened to Ino talk about frustrations that had nothing to do with missions, because he knew what it felt like when emotions were dismissed as unimportant. He respected Temari's strength without challenging it, because he understood what it meant to stand alone without needing validation. He encouraged Hinata quietly, not realizing that sometimes, quiet encouragement stayed longer than loud promises. To Naruto, these were small things. To others, they were not. Sakura noticed first. It wasn't love, at least, not the way she once understood it. It was something calmer, something that made her breathe easier when Naruto was nearby. He didn't try to protect her or impress her anymore. He trusted her strength. He respected her silence. One evening, as they walked outside the hospital, Sakura realized something unsettling. Naruto made her feel safe without making her feel small. That feeling stayed with her longer than she expected. Ino felt something sharper. Naruto didn't flirt, didn't tease the way others did. He listened, actually listened, without turning her emotions into jokes or distractions. When she spoke, he didn't rush to respond. He gave her space to finish her thoughts. One day, she stopped mid-sentence and stared at him. "You don't even know what you're doing, do you?" she asked. Naruto laughed. "Doing what?" Ino shook her head, unsettled. "That's the problem." Temari saw it with clarity. Naruto never tried to dominate a conversation. Never asserted himself unnecessarily. He treated her as an equal, not a prize or a challenge. His respect wasn't performative. It was instinctive. Strength recognized strength. And that recognition planted something quiet and dangerous. Admiration. Hinata felt it differently than anyone else. She had known Naruto's kindness when it was raw and reckless, when it was loud and desperate. Now it was measured, intentional, gentle. When Naruto spoke to her, he didn't rush. When she hesitated, he waited. When she trained, he didn't hover, he trusted. Hinata realized one night, standing beside him in silence, that Naruto's kindness no longer felt like encouragement. It felt like connection. And that frightened her more than rejection ever had. Naruto, meanwhile, felt none of this, at least, not clearly. What he felt was something vague and unfamiliar. Conversations felt heavier than before. Silences lasted longer. Smiles carried meanings he couldn't quite read. People didn't pull away when he finished speaking. They stayed. He began to sense it one evening, standing alone on a rooftop, the village lights glowing beneath him. Something had changed. And for the first time, Naruto wondered if kindness, given freely, without intention, could still carry consequences. He thought back to the boy he used to be. The boy who wanted to be noticed. The boy who begged the world to care. That boy would have welcomed attention without question. But Naruto was no longer that boy. Now, he felt something unfamiliar. Responsibility. Naruto realized something slowly, painfully. Kindness could be misunderstood. Kindness could be held onto. Kindness could become the seed of feelings he never meant to plant. And ignoring those feelings would hurt people just as much as rejecting them. Standing beneath the open sky, Naruto clenched his fists, not in fear, but in resolve. I don't want to hurt anyone, he thought. But for the first time, kindness alone might not be enough. Naruto Uzumaki had spent his life learning how to protect others from pain. Now he faced a challenge no battle had prepared him for. How to be honest, without losing the warmth that made him who he was. And that realization marked the beginning of something far more complicated than any war. Naruto didn't change how he acted after that realization. At least, not at first. He still showed up early to help with missions no one wanted. He still listened when people needed to talk, still smiled when things felt too heavy. Kindness had never been something he switched on or off. It was woven into him, as natural as breathing. But now, awareness followed him everywhere. And awareness changed how silence felt. He noticed it during conversations that stretched a little too long. A pause after a laugh. A look that lingered after a thank you. A quiet moment where someone waited, as if expecting something more. Naruto began to sense emotions in the air, unspoken, unresolved, real. It unsettled him. Not because he feared those feelings, but because he had never intended to create them. Sakura felt the tension first. They were working late one night, the hospital quiet except for distant footsteps and the hum of lamps. Naruto handed her a cup of tea without speaking, as he often did. Sakura took it, fingers brushing his for a brief second. She froze. Naruto noticed. You okay? He asked gently. Sakura nodded too quickly. Yeah, just tired. But later, alone, Sakura admitted the truth to herself. Naruto's presence didn't comfort her the way it used to. It grounded her. And that grounding felt dangerously close to something she wasn't sure she wanted to feel again. Ino struggled in a different way. She was used to attention, used to admiration, flirting, surface-level attraction. Naruto gave her none of that. Instead, he offered something quieter and far more unsettling. He remembered details. He asked questions without steering the answers. He didn't judge her for emotions she didn't fully understand herself. One afternoon, she snapped at him for no real reason. You don't have to act like you care about everything I say, she said sharply. Naruto looked genuinely confused. I do care. That was it. No defensiveness. No teasing. No retreat. Ino walked away angry. Not at him, but at herself. Because she realized she wanted him to stop caring, only because she didn't know what to do with how much it meant. Temari observed from a distance. She noticed how Naruto never leaned into attention, never used affection to assert himself. He didn't enjoy the effect he had on people, nor did he exploit it. He seemed unaware of his own emotional gravity. That made him dangerous. Not because he intended harm, but because unintentional influence was the hardest to guard against. One evening, she said to him bluntly, "You don't know how deeply people feel things, do you?" Quote. Naruto frowned. I try to be careful. Temari shook her head. Careful isn't the same as aware. The words stayed with him. Hinata felt everything most quietly, and most painfully. She had loved Naruto for years, but she had learned how to carry that love without letting it control her. Or so she believed. Now, Naruto's kindness felt different. More deliberate. More attentive. More personal. When he waited for her to finish speaking instead of filling the silence. When he trusted her without hovering. When he stood beside her, not ahead of her. Hinata realized that Naruto wasn't just kind anymore. He was present. And presence was far harder to guard against than affection. Naruto, meanwhile, began questioning himself. Was kindness still kindness if it caused confusion? Was warmth still harmless if it led to hope? He didn't want to withdraw. He didn't want to harden himself. But he also didn't want to keep walking blindly through emotions he barely understood. For the first time, Naruto felt the weight of something he had never carried before. Impact. One night, Naruto stood alone on a quiet rooftop, the village stretched beneath him. The wind was cool, steady. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. I never meant for this, he thought. But intention didn't erase consequence. Naruto realized that being kind was no longer just about giving. It was about understanding how what you give is received. And that understanding frightened him more than any enemy ever had. He didn't know what he would change yet. He only knew one thing. Ignoring these feelings, his own confusion, and the emotions growing around him, would hurt people far more than facing them. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed kindness was his greatest strength. Now he was beginning to understand that strength required responsibility. And learning how to carry that responsibility would change him forever. Naruto did something he rarely did. He slowed down. Not in his actions. He still trained, still helped, still showed up where he was needed, but in his responses. He stopped filling every silence. He stopped assuming that warmth alone was always the right answer. He began paying attention not just to what people said, but to what lingered after they spoke. And in that space, emotions became clearer. He noticed how Sakura's voice softened around him now, how she no longer masked exhaustion with sharp humor when he was nearby. She trusted him with her unguarded moments, and Naruto felt the weight of that trust more than he ever had before. One evening, as they cleaned up after a long shift, Sakura spoke quietly without looking at him. You know, you don't make me feel like I have to hold myself together. Naruto paused. Is that bad? Sakura shook her head. No, it's just dangerous. Comfort can turn into dependency if you're not careful. Quote. Naruto absorbed her words slowly. He realized Sakura wasn't blaming him. She was warning both of them. Ino reacted differently. She became sharper, more restless, as if trying to shake something loose inside herself. Naruto could see it now, the way she watched him when she thought he wasn't looking, the way her teasing had lost its ease. During a casual conversation, she suddenly asked, "Do you ever get tired of being everyone's safe place?" Quote. Naruto blinked. I don't mind it. Ino laughed, but it was brittle. That's what scares me. Naruto didn't know how to respond. He realized then that kindness could feel overwhelming. Not because it was excessive, but because it was constant. Temari's approach remained grounded, almost detached. She didn't linger near Naruto, didn't invite emotional closeness, but when they spoke, her words cut straight through his confusion. You don't owe anyone less kindness, she told him plainly. But you owe them clarity. Naruto frowned. What if I don't have clarity yet? Temari met his gaze. Then don't pretend you do. Uncertainty is less cruel than false reassurance. That stayed with him. Naruto had always feared uncertainty, his own, and others. Now he was learning that pretending certainty could do more harm than admitting confusion. Hinata felt the shift more intensely than anyone. Naruto's kindness had always been there, but now it carried awareness. When he looked at her, he wasn't just encouraging, he was seeing. And that made her heart ache in a way she hadn't prepared for. They walked together one evening, neither speaking for a long time. You're thinking too much, Hinata said softly. Naruto smiled faintly. You can tell. She nodded. You're quieter when you're trying not to hurt anyone. Naruto stopped walking. I don't want to give people the wrong idea, he admitted. Hinata's fingers curled slightly at her side. Sometimes, people decide what something means on their own. Naruto looked at her, troubled. Hinata met his gaze steadily. You can't protect everyone from feeling things. The truth in her voice struck him deeply. That night, Naruto sat alone, replaying conversations, expressions, pauses he had once ignored. He wasn't overwhelmed, but he was changed. He finally understood that kindness was not neutral. It shaped people. It lingered. It carried meaning far beyond intention. He asked himself a question he had avoided for too long. What am I feeling? Not what others felt. Not what he should do. What he felt. And the answer wasn't simple. He felt warmth toward many people, but not the same kind. He felt comfort in some silences, and restlessness in others. He felt responsibility, but also the need for honesty with himself. Naruto realized that his kindness had always been outward focused. Now, he needed to turn that awareness inward. Standing beneath the quiet sky, Naruto exhaled slowly. I don't want to stop being kind, he thought. But I don't want to be careless either. For the first time, Naruto understood that emotional strength wasn't about giving endlessly. It was about knowing how you give, why you give, and when to speak truth instead of comfort. That realization didn't give him answers, but it gave him direction. Naruto began to understand that kindness, once given, did not simply vanish into the air. It stayed. It settled into people, shaped their expectations, softened the defenses, and sometimes awakened parts of them they had learned to keep quiet. Naruto had always believed kindness was safe because it asked for nothing in return. Now he was learning that kindness could be powerful precisely because of that. People trusted what did not demand. And trust, once formed, carried weight. He tested this realization unintentionally during the days that followed. Naruto still helped where he could, but he changed the way he helped. He asked before stepping in. He listened without offering solutions. He allowed people to finish thoughts even when silence stretched long and uncomfortable. Some people relaxed. Others grew more aware. And that awareness told Naruto something important. Kindness was not the same for everyone. Sakura noticed the difference during a quiet moment between tasks. Naruto handed her a stack of reports, then hesitated, as if considering whether to say something else. He didn't. He simply nodded and moved away. Later, Sakura found herself watching him from across the room. You're holding back, she said when they were alone. Naruto didn't deny it. I'm trying not to assume what people need. Sakura leaned against the counter, thoughtful. That's good. But don't forget, you're allowed to exist too. Not just respond. Naruto looked at her, surprised. For so long, his kindness had been reactive. Someone hurt, he helped. Someone doubted, he encouraged. Someone needed, he stayed. Now Sakura was reminding him that kindness did not mean disappearing into usefulness. Her words stayed with him. Ino sensed something different entirely. Naruto's presence no longer felt like an open invitation. It felt respectful, but distant, like a door gently closed instead of left wide open. Ino found herself frustrated by that. You don't look at me the same, she said one afternoon, half joking, half serious. Naruto frowned. How did I look before? Ino hesitated, then shrugged. Like you were ready to catch whatever I threw at you. Quote. Naruto thought about that. And now you're letting it fall, she said quietly. Naruto didn't know whether that was good or bad. Neither did Ino. But both of them understood that something had changed. Temari, ever perceptive, noticed Naruto's internal struggle without him saying a word. You're learning limits, she said during a brief meeting. Naruto nodded. I didn't know kindness needed them. Temari smirked faintly. Anything without limits becomes overwhelming. Even warmth. Naruto respected her for saying it plainly. She didn't accuse him of wrongdoing. She simply acknowledged reality. Hinata felt the shift more subtly, but more deeply. Naruto's kindness toward her had always been gentle, but now it was careful. He waited for her cues. He watched for hesitation. He didn't assume comfort where there might be vulnerability. It should have made her feel safer. Instead, it made her feel seen. And being seen was far more dangerous than being encouraged. One evening, as they walked together under the fading light, Hinata spoke softly. You're thinking about everyone all the time. Quote. Naruto smiled faintly. I don't want to hurt anyone. Hinata stopped walking. You can't protect people from feelings, she said gently. Only from dishonesty. Naruto looked at her, struck by the quiet firmness in her voice. Hinata met his gaze, steady and calm. If you keep trying to be harmless, you'll disappear. Those words cut deeper than any criticism. Because Naruto realized they were true. That night, Naruto sat alone longer than usual. He didn't replay conversations this time. He questioned himself. Why did he give kindness so freely? Was it habit, fear, or genuine care? Was he afraid that if he stopped being kind, people would stop staying? The questions were uncomfortable, but Naruto had learned that discomfort was often the doorway to growth. He remembered the boy he once was. The boy who gave kindness because he wanted to be loved. The boy who stayed because he feared being abandoned. Naruto had grown stronger, wiser, but pieces of that boy still lived inside him. And now, those pieces were shaping situations he hadn't anticipated. Naruto understood something important. His kindness was sincere, but sincerity did not erase impact. The next morning, Naruto made a quiet decision. He would not stop being kind. He would not harden himself. But he would begin pairing kindness with clarity. Not explanations. Not promises. Just honesty. He started small. When someone thanked him excessively, he smiled and said, "You don't owe me anything." When someone lingered, he allowed the pause, but did not extend it unnecessarily. When someone looked at him with expectation, he met the gaze calmly instead of filling the space with reassurance. These were not rejections. They were boundaries. And Naruto felt something unexpected as he practiced them. Relief. With Sakura, the bond became cleaner, stronger without being dependent. With Ino, tension softened into understanding. With Temari, respect deepened without complication. With Hinata, things remained quiet, but the quiet felt heavier now, charged with awareness rather than confidence. Ion. And Naruto knew that at some point, silence would need words. Not yet. But soon. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed his greatest strength was kindness. Now he was learning that kindness without self-awareness could wound as deeply as cruelty. True kindness, he realized, required courage. The courage to be clear. The courage to accept discomfort. The courage to let people feel, even when you couldn't control the outcome. And as Naruto looked out over the village, feeling the weight of connections he had never expected to create, he understood that this journey was far from over. It wasn't a story about love yet. It was a story about responsibility, awareness, and the moment kindness stopped being simple, and started becoming something deeper. Naruto discovered that clarity did not arrive all at once. It came in fragments. Moments where his actions aligned with his intentions, moments where he resisted the instinct to soften everything, moments where he chose honesty over comfort. Each fragment felt small on its own, but together they began to reshape how he moved through the world. And how the world moved around him. He noticed the difference during a routine patrol with a mixed team of shinobi. Conversations were light at first, then drifted toward personal things, plans, worries, the strange quiet that peace had brought. Naruto listened, attentive as always, but when someone turned to him for reassurance, he didn't rush to offer it. Instead, he asked, "What do you think you need right now?" The question changed the tone instantly. People paused, thought, answered for themselves. Naruto realized then that kindness did not always mean carrying someone forward. Sometimes it meant helping them stand on their own. Sakura felt that shift deeply. They worked side by side late one night, sorting supplies in near silence. When Sakura sighed, Naruto didn't immediately ask what was wrong. He waited. After a long moment, Sakura spoke on her own. "I'm tired," she said. "Not physically. Just tired of being strong." Naruto nodded. "You don't have to be strong with me." Sakura looked at him sharply, then softened. That sentence could have meant many things. Naruto made sure it meant only one. "I trust you," he added quietly. "Not because you need help. Because you know yourself." Sakura exhaled slowly. That was kindness without invitation. And it felt safer than comfort. Ino struggled more openly. Naruto's new boundaries felt like distance to her at first, and distance made her restless. She was used to emotional engagement. Sparks, reactions, clarity through confrontation. One afternoon, she stopped him outright. You're stepping back, she said. Naruto didn't deny it. I'm trying not to confuse things. Ino frowned. And what if stepping back is confusing? Naruto met her gaze. Then we talk about it. Ino studied him, searching for deflection, humor, avoidance. There was none. She nodded slowly. Okay. Then, thank you for not pretending. What she felt didn't disappear. But it changed shape. Temari remained steady, observant. She saw Naruto's adjustments not as retreat, but as refinement. When they spoke, she said simply, "You're learning the difference between warmth and gravity." Naruto considered that. Gravity. Temari nodded. People orbit what pulls too hard. Naruto understood. He didn't want to become something people revolved around unintentionally. Hinata felt the changes in the smallest ways. Naruto no longer leaned in automatically when she hesitated. He didn't interpret her quiet as uncertainty. He trusted her strength enough to let silence exist. That trust made her chest ache. One evening, they walked together beneath a pale sky, neither rushing. Naruto spoke softly. I'm trying to be more careful. Hinata glanced at him. With what? With people's hearts. Hinata stopped walking. Naruto turned, concerned. Did I? No, she said quickly. Then more slowly, I just wanted to say something. Quote. She gathered herself, voice steady. Being careful is good. But don't be so careful that you stop being real. Naruto absorbed her words deeply. Hinata wasn't asking for reassurance. She was asking for truth. That night, Naruto sat alone longer than usual. He realized something difficult but necessary. Kindness paired with silence could still mislead. Boundaries without communication could still confuse. Awareness had to be followed by action. Measured, honest action. Not withdrawal. Not performance. Truth. Naruto understood now that he could not remain neutral forever. He didn't need to make declarations. He didn't need to choose anyone yet. But he did need to stop hiding behind kindness when honesty was required. That realization did not frighten him. It steadied him. As dawn approached, Naruto looked out over the village, feeling the quiet weight of connections he had never expected to create. He had spent his life learning how to protect others from pain. Now he was learning something harder. How to respect their feelings without controlling them. How to be kind without being careless. How to stay real without retreating. And that lesson, slow, uncomfortable, necessary, was still unfolding. Naruto began to realize that the hardest part of growth was not changing what you did. It was changing why you did it. For years, kindness had been his instinctive response to the world. It had kept him alive when he was lonely, anchored him when he was lost, and connected him to others when words failed. But now, that same instinct was asking to be examined, not abandoned. And examination was uncomfortable. He noticed it during moments when he chose not to act. A shinobi hesitated before asking him for reassurance, and Naruto waited. A conversation slowed, and he didn't rush to revive it. A silence stretched, and he let it exist. Each time, his chest tightened briefly, as if resisting an old habit. But when he stayed still, something unexpected happened. People adjusted. They found their own footing. Naruto understood then that kindness was not always movement towards someone. Sometimes, it was restraint. Sakura experienced this shift during a rare quiet evening. They sat outside the hospital after a long shift, neither speaking at first. Naruto didn't fill the silence with humor or encouragement. He simply sat beside her, present. After a while, Sakura spoke. You know, when you don't rush to comfort me, I actually feel more capable. Quote. Naruto turned to her, surprised. Sakura smiled faintly. It makes me feel trusted. Naruto felt warmth. Not pride, not relief, but understanding. That kind of kindness didn't pull people closer. It allowed them to stand taller. Ino confronted the change more directly. She was used to emotional momentum, to exchanges that crackled with energy. Naruto's steadiness unsettled her at first, but then she began to see what it offered. One afternoon, she said quietly, You're not trying to win people over anymore. Naruto thought about that. I don't think I ever meant to. Ino nodded. I know. But now it shows. Her feelings hadn't vanished. They had clarified. And clarity, she realized, was gentler than uncertainty. Temari observed Naruto with measured respect. You're learning something most people never do, she said during a brief conversation. How not to become the center of gravity. Naruto raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. Temari smirked. It is. But it's also honest. Naruto took that with him. He didn't want to be someone others unconsciously orbited around, mistaking kindness for direction. Hinata felt the truth of Naruto's growth in a way that went beyond words. His presence around her had become intentional, not reflexive. He no longer tried to anticipate her needs. He trusted her to express them. That trust carried weight. One evening, they walked together beneath a quiet sky. You don't rush to fill silence anymore, Hinata said softly. Naruto smiled. I used to think silence meant I was failing. Quote. Hinata shook her head. Silence just means there's nothing to hide. Naruto looked at her, struck by the quiet courage in her voice. Hinata wasn't asking him to be more. She was asking him to be real. That night, Naruto understood something essential. Kindness without awareness was instinct. Kindness with awareness was choice. And choice carried responsibility. He didn't need to withdraw from people. He didn't need to harden himself. But he did need to stop using kindness as a shield against difficult truths. Naruto sat alone, breathing slowly, letting the realization settle. He had inspired feelings he never expected. Not because he misled anyone, but because kindness, when steady and sincere, naturally invited connection. The mistake would not be in having inspired those feelings. The mistake would be in pretending he didn't see them. As the village slept, Naruto felt the weight of what lay ahead. Not fear, but inevitability. Soon, he would need to speak honestly. Soon, silence would need words. Not dramatic confessions. Not sudden decisions. Just truth, spoken carefully, without cruelty. Naruto Uzumaki had faced enemies who wanted to destroy the world. Now he faced something far quieter, far more delicate. The responsibility of being seen. And that responsibility was shaping him into someone new. Naruto reached a point where reflection stopped being a habit and became a state of being. He no longer waited for quiet moments to think. Awareness followed him everywhere. Into conversations, into training sessions, into the simple act of walking through the village. He felt emotions before words were spoken now, sensed hesitation before it took shape, recognized expectation before it hardened into hope. And that recognition changed how he stood in the world. He noticed it one afternoon during a joint training session. The group gathered around him naturally, not because he asked them to, but because they trusted him to guide the pace. Naruto felt the pull immediately, the familiar instinct to take responsibility, to lead, to absorb the energy and steady it. This time, he resisted. Split into pairs, he said calmly. Figure out what you want to work on. Quote. There was a pause. Confusion flickered. Then people moved, talking among themselves, deciding without him. Naruto stepped back, arms crossed loosely, watching. For the first time, he did not feel needed. And surprisingly, he did not feel diminished. He felt balanced. Sakura noticed the shift with quiet admiration. She approached him afterward, wiping sweat from her forehead. You didn't take over. Naruto smiled faintly. Didn't seem necessary. Sakura nodded. It wasn't. And that's the point. She hesitated, then added softly, you're learning how to trust people with their own emotions. Naruto considered that. I think I'm learning how to trust myself not to fix everything. Quote. Sakura smiled, something proud in her eyes. Their bond felt lighter now, not less meaningful, but freer. There was no pressure to lean, no expectation to carry. Just mutual respect and shared understanding. Ino experienced Naruto's growth as distance at first, then as relief. She caught herself no longer waiting after conversations, no longer replaying his words in her head. The emotional tension she'd carried, sharp, restless, had begun to loosen. One evening, she said honestly, "You don't give mixed signals anymore." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know I was." Ino laughed quietly. "You were. Not on purpose. You cared loudly." Naruto nodded slowly. "I'm trying to care clearly now." Ino met his gaze, studying him. "It suits you." And just like that, something between them settled, not vanished, not rejected, but completed. Temari saw Naruto's restraint as strength refined. "You've stopped collecting people's emotions," she observed during a brief conversation. Naruto frowned. "Collecting?" Temari nodded. "Some leaders absorb everything around them without realizing it. It makes others dependent." Quote. Naruto exhaled. "I don't want that." Temari smirked. "Good. Dependency is fragile. Respect lasts longer." Naruto understood her completely. Hinata felt Naruto's awareness in a way that made her both calm and uneasy. His kindness toward her was no longer instinctive. It was intentional. He didn't assume comfort. He waited. He listened. He trusted her to step forward when she was ready. That trust stirred something deep inside her. They trained together one evening, movements synchronized, breaths steady. When they finished, Naruto didn't immediately speak. He waited. Hinata broke the silence. "You don't treat me like I need protection anymore." Quote. Naruto looked at her, surprised. "You never did." Hinata smiled gently. "I know. But now you know." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Not longing, not confession. Recognition. That night, Naruto sat alone, no longer burdened by questions, but guided by principles. Be kind, but not confusing. Be present, but not possessive. Be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. He realized that kindness, when paired with awareness, became something far more powerful than he had ever imagined. It became integrity. Naruto understood now that he didn't need to erase the feelings he had inspired. He needed to respect them. And respecting them meant being willing to let people feel, even if those feelings led them away from him instead of closer. That thought no longer frightened him. It steadied him. As the village slept, Naruto felt a quiet resolve take shape within him. Soon, words would be needed. Soon, honesty would replace silence. Not to confess, not to choose, but to acknowledge reality without hiding behind kindness. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed strength was about standing between people and pain. Now he was learning that true strength was standing with them, without controlling the outcome. And that lesson was shaping the man he was becoming. Naruto realized that the more aware he became, the quieter his world felt. Not empty, focused. He no longer reacted first and reflected later. Reflection came before action now, settling into him like a steady breath. This shift did not make him colder or distant. It made him deliberate. And deliberation changed how others perceived him, even if they could not name why. People no longer mistook his presence for permission. They saw it as stability. He felt the difference during a meeting meant to plan future missions. The room was filled with voices, ideas overlapping, tensions rising as opinions clashed. Naruto listened, attentive but detached. When the discussion stalled and eyes turned toward him, waiting for direction, he spoke carefully. "I hear a lot of good ideas," he said calmly. "But I don't think this is my decision to make." The room went quiet. Naruto did not rush to fill the silence. He let it exist. Eventually, others spoke again, more thoughtfully this time, weighing each other's words instead of waiting for his approval. Naruto stepped back, letting the discussion find its own rhythm. For the first time, leadership did not mean centrality. It meant restraint. Sakura watched this change with a mixture of admiration and relief. Later, she found Naruto alone and spoke honestly. "You're easier to work with now." Quote. Naruto blinked. "I was difficult." "No," Sakura said gently. "You were intense. You carried things that weren't yours to carry." Naruto nodded. "I thought that was my role." Sakura shook her head. Your role isn't to absorb everyone. It's to stand beside them. Naruto felt those words settle deeply. With Sakura, the bond felt complete, no longer shaped by past longing or unfinished expectations. What remained was something sturdy and mutual, untouched by confusion. Ino noticed the change as freedom. She no longer felt compelled to test Naruto's reactions or provoke clarity through confrontation. His steadiness made emotional games feel unnecessary. One afternoon, she said quietly, "You don't feel like an emotional mirror anymore." Quote. Naruto considered that. Is that good? Ino smiled. It means I see myself more clearly instead. Her feelings had not vanished. They had matured into something that did not need his attention to exist. Temari remained blunt, as always. You've stopped attracting chaos, she observed. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I was doing that. Temari smirked. Unintentionally. People confuse warmth with invitation. Naruto nodded slowly. I don't want to invite confusion. Then keep doing what you're doing, Temari said. Clarity repels illusion. Naruto respected her honesty. Hinata felt the weight of Naruto's growth most deeply. His presence around her was no longer charged with uncertainty. It was intentional, grounded, and open. He didn't fill silences or rush reassurance. He trusted her to speak when she was ready. That trust was heavier than encouragement. They walked together one evening beneath a quiet sky. You're different, Hinata said softly. Naruto smiled faintly. Better or worse? Hinata thought for a moment. Truer. Naruto felt a quiet ache at that word. Not pain, but recognition. Hinata was not asking for reassurance. She was acknowledging reality. That night, Naruto reflected on everything he had learned. Kindness without awareness created confusion. Awareness without kindness created distance. The balance between them was fragile, but necessary. Naruto realized he had spent much of his life trying to be everything for everyone, believing that was what being good meant. Now he understood that goodness was not about availability. It was about integrity. He accepted something difficult but freeing. Some people would misinterpret his kindness no matter how careful he was. Some feelings would form despite his best intentions. That did not mean he was responsible for every outcome. Only for honesty. Standing alone beneath the open sky, Naruto felt a quiet certainty take hold. Soon, he would need to speak. Not dramatically, not impulsively, but clearly. He would need to acknowledge emotions without promising futures he did not yet understand. And when that time came, he would not hide behind kindness. He would stand in truth. Naruto Uzumaki had always been defined by his heart. Now, he was learning how to carry it with wisdom. Naruto began to sense the moment when kindness crossed into something more fragile. It was never loud, never obvious. It happened in the pause after a conversation ended, in the way someone stayed just a second longer than necessary, in the quiet relief that settled when he entered a room. These were not confessions. They were signals. And Naruto was finally seeing them. Seeing them meant he could no longer pretend they weren't there. He felt it most clearly during an evening patrol with a small team. The work was routine, the route familiar, but the atmosphere felt different. People spoke carefully, as if choosing words mattered more than usual. When Naruto offered a suggestion, it wasn't questioned. When he laughed, it softened the tension instantly. Afterward, one of the kunoikis said quietly, "It feels easier when you're around." Naruto smiled, but the words stayed with him. Easier. He wondered when his presence had become something people leaned on emotionally, not just strategically. Later that night, Sakura found him on the hospital steps. You've been distant, she said without accusation. Naruto shook his head. Just careful. Sakura studied him for a long moment. Careful can feel like pulling away. Quote. Naruto considered that. I don't want to give people the wrong idea. Sakura sighed softly. Naruto, the wrong idea doesn't come from kindness. It comes from silence. That struck him harder than he expected. Silence had always felt safer than honesty. Now he was realizing it could be just as misleading. Ino confronted the same issue from another angle. She caught him after training, expression unusually serious. You know people don't fall for you because you try, right? She said. Naruto blinked. I don't try. I know, Ino replied. That's why it happens. She crossed her arms. You make people feel understood. That's rare. And dangerous. Naruto exhaled slowly. I never wanted that kind of effect. Ino met his gaze steadily. Intent doesn't erase impact. The words echoed in his mind long after she left. Temari's insight arrived later, sharp and precise as always. You're standing at a crossroads, she said plainly during a brief meeting. One path is withdrawal, the other is honesty. Naruto frowned. And the third? Temari shook her head. There isn't one. If you keep being kind without being clear, people will fill the gaps for you. Quote. Naruto understood exactly what she meant. Unspoken things grew larger in silence. Hinata felt Naruto's conflict without him saying a word. They trained together one evening, movements steady, the rhythm familiar. When they finished, Naruto sat quietly, staring at the ground. You're carrying something, Hinata said softly. Naruto hesitated. I don't want to hurt anyone. Hinata's voice was gentle, but firm. You can't avoid hurting people by avoiding truth. Quote. Naruto looked at her then, really looked. Hinata wasn't asking for reassurance. She was offering clarity. That night, Naruto finally admitted something to himself. His kindness had not been wrong. The feelings it inspired were not mistakes. But pretending not to notice them was. Naruto realized that being emotionally responsible did not mean choosing immediately or declaring answers he didn't have. It meant acknowledging reality without hiding behind good intentions. He didn't need to change who he was. He needed to speak when silence became misleading. As the village lights dimmed and the night settled in, Naruto felt a quiet resolve forming. Soon, he would have conversations he had avoided. Soon, he would allow honesty to replace assumption. Not to close doors, but to stop leaving them half open without meaning to. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed kindness was about giving. Now he understood it was also about clarity. And that understanding marked the final turning point of this chapter, where kindness stopped being instinct alone and began to be guided by awareness. Naruto Uzumaki finally understood that kindness was never the problem. It was never a flaw, never a mistake, never something he needed to bury or restrain. Kindness had saved him when the world turned its back. It had built bridges where none existed. It had taught him how to stand beside others instead of above them. But kindness, left unexplained, could become silent influence. And influence carried responsibility. He looked back on the moments that had brought him here. Sakura's quiet trust, born from being seen without being rescued. Ino's sharp honesty, shaped by clarity replacing confusion. Temari's unwavering respect, grounded in balance and restraint. Hinata's steady presence, offering truth without demand. None of these feelings were accidents. None of them were wrong. They were reflections of consistency, of empathy, of a man who had learned how to care deeply without asking for anything in return. Naruto realized then that he did not need to undo what he had inspired. He needed to honor it. Honoring feelings did not mean returning them in the same form. It did not mean choosing immediately or offering promises he did not yet understand. It meant acknowledging reality instead of hiding behind silence. Standing beneath the open sky, Naruto felt no panic, no urgency. Only clarity. He accepted that some conversations would be uncomfortable. Some truths would be quiet but firm. Some emotions would remain unreturned, but still respected. And that was not cruelty. That was integrity. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed strength was about protecting others from pain. Now he understood something deeper. True strength was the courage to be honest. Even when honesty risked disappointment. Even when kindness alone was no longer enough. As the village settled into sleep, Naruto felt grounded in a way he never had before. Not because everything was resolved. Not because every feeling had found an answer. But because he was no longer running from awareness. His kindness had grown into something more complete, guided by clarity, anchored in truth, and carried with intention. And with that understanding, this chapter of Naruto's journey came to a close. Not with a confession, not with a choice, but with the quiet certainty that whatever came next, he would face it honestly. Thank you.